In an electrifying twist that has fans of CBS's The Bold and the beautiful reeling with shock and heartbreak, the first days of August herald a crisis so profound that it threatens to upend every relationship at the core of the Forrester, Logan, Spencer universe, dragging two women into a chasm of pain that could echo for years to come. It all begins on the eve of what Ridge Forrester had believed would be the happiest night of his life. His secret wedding to Taylor Hayes in the hallowed confines of an ancient Florentine basilica, its moss-covered stones echoing with centuries of whispered vows and pilgrim prayers. Ridge, decked in an impeccably tailored midnight blue suit with a silk tie the color of storm clouds, had arrived early to make certain that every rose petal and every flickering candle matched his vision of a private fairy tale. A union untainted by public spectacle, a sanctuary of love that could finally heal the wounds of betrayal and heartache that had scarred both him and Taylor. Yet as twilight descended over the Arno River and the cathedral bells tolled, Taylor herself stood abandoned at the grand entrance, her ivory veil trailing like a wounded swan's wake behind her, gazing through the carved wooden doors at the empty aisle where her future husband was meant to await her. In that shattering moment, she realized with gut-wrenching clarity that Ridge's heart, for all its professions of devotion, still beat for Brooke Logan. She had, in her belief in second chances and steadfast hope in Ridge's promises, overlooked the flicker of longing in his eyes whenever he spoke her name. The way he had subtly redirected the conversation back to the woman whose laugh once had lit up every corner of his soul. That revelation, sharp as a dagger, cold as the marble steps beneath her feet, sent Taylor's world crashing down around her, each echoing footstep of the wedding party conspiring against her as she sank to her knees on the threshold, her perfect wedding gown blossoming into a riot of shimmers beneath the votive lights. With her breath hitching, arms trembling, Taylor rose and turned away from the empty aisle, the heavy doors slamming shut behind her with a finality that mirrored the shattering of her dreams. Unmoored and abandoned in a foreign land, she stumbled through the narrow cobblestone streets of Florence, guided only by the relentless drizzle of rain and the thunder of her own heartbreak pounding in her ears. The night air, scented with damp stone and the distant warmth of olive groves, felt unrelenting as Taylor, tears mingling with raindrops on her cheeks, reached her sports car parked beneath a canopy of chestnut trees. Her hands, slender, once so steady in the operating room, shook as she fumbled for her keys, each flash of lightning in the dark sky illuminating the wreckage of her hopes. In a daze, she slid into the driver's seat, heart clenching with the awful knowledge that she was fleeing not only her secret wedding, but the man she had vowed to cherish until her dying breath. Foot to the pedal, tires screaming on slick pavement, Taylor tore away in a blur of anguish, the Florentine skyline blurring past her as she sought to outrun the agony that threatened to consume her from within. But grief is not a passenger you can speed away from, and in her sleep-deprived, tear-blinded state, Taylor failed to navigate a sharp turn along the riverbank road. The car, a sleek vessel of her hopes and fears, fish-tailed as the rain-slicked surface betrayed her, careening off the guardrail with a bone-jarring impact that sent shards of glass and twisted metal splintering into the night. Time dilated in the instant of collision. Taylor's scream echoed in her own ears as the world tilted, darkness rushing in around her. And when the storm cleared a heartbeat later, her lifeless form lay tangled in the wreckage, the rain washing over her like an unmerciful baptism, blood mixing with water in a haunting tableau of love's ruin. Meanwhile, inside the ancient cathedral, Ridge paced the stone aisle in growing alarm. The doors remained locked, Taylor's arrival conspicuously absent, and each toll of the bell sounded like a death knell rather than a celebration. His grief and guilt collided as he realized too late the depth of Taylor's despair, that his lingering attachment to Brooke Logan, his unwillingness to sever a bond that had defined him since youth, had driven the woman he loved to desperation. Wrenching his phone from his pocket, he dialed Taylor's number with frantic fingers, but each ring was met with silence or an ominous buzz. No answer, no message, no sign of her. Fear fanned into panic, and Ridge tore from the church into the rain-soaked streets, words of regret choking him as he searched for any sign of the woman he had promised to honor. Miles away, emergency lights flashed against the stone walls of an Italian hospital where Taylor, unconscious and critically injured, was rushed into the trauma unit. Neurosurgeons and trauma specialists battled to stabilize her, but the damage was severe. A fractured skull, internal bleeding, a concussion that threatened her memories of Ridge and every promise they had exchanged, every fix that had bound them through decades of trials now hung in the balance of a slender thread between life and death. News of the accident reached Ridge at dawn, carried by rushed hospital staff who found him drenched and hollow-eyed at the roadside, muttering Taylor's name as if uttering a sacred hymn. When he finally confronted the stark truth in an overwrought waiting room, he collapsed into a kneeling posture, hands clenching as he vowed, with tears soaking the collar of his designer shirt, that he would never again take Taylor for granted. And yet, as Ridge knelt in prayer for Taylor's survival, a darker reckoning stirred within Brooke Logan, thousands of miles away in Los Angeles, where she had been preparing to meet Nick Marone for what she believed might be the start of a new chapter, blissfully unaware of the tragedy unfolding in Florence. The news of Taylor's accident cut through Brooke's complacency like a scythe. In one devastating instant, the slender threads of her happiness with Ridge threatened to unravel, replaced by guilt so overwhelming that it seemed to eclipse even her own heartbreak. She questioned whether she, too, had been a silent architect of Taylor's despair by allowing her heart to turn toward Ridge once more, by rekindling a love that had never truly been extinguished between them despite their countless betrayals and reunions. The memory of Taylor, alone in the rain and driven to such panic by Ridge's lingering emotions for Brooke, tormented her. Guilt pried open her chest, and she felt the weight of every secret smile, every stolen glance that had kept Ridge tethered to her even as he promised Taylor a future. For Brooke Logan, the accident was more than a shocking headline, it was a moral crucible. Could she claim the title of the final love in Ridge's life when another heart lay broken and bleeding because of her? Could she live with the knowledge that while she chased her own happiness, Taylor had chased an empty aisle in an Italian cathedral, only to collide with destiny in the most tragic way possible? These questions shredded any pretense of peace, compelling Brooke to confront her own motives, her own desires, and the tangled web of guilt that bound her to Taylor's suffering. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone and dialed Ridge, knowing that their next conversation would not be about love's promise, but about the unbearable weight of loss, about whether she could ever atone for the heartbreak that might cost Taylor her life. As Ridge hovered between hope and despair in that Florentine ICU, and Brooke faced her own reckoning back in LA, the larger Forrester, Logan tapestry began to fray at the edges. Families that had endured scandals, betrayals, and secret affairs were now beset by an even more harrowing test. Could love survive the cruelest twist of fate, or would Taylor's accident render all past sins pale by comparison? In hospital waiting rooms and designer offices alike, conversations turned urgent. Nick Marone, having canceled his flight upon hearing the news, grappled with the realization that his own romance with Brooke might be built on the rubble of someone else's devastation. Taylor's dearest friends, Steffi, Hope, and Thomas, rushed to her bedside, their collective grief tempered by fear that the neurosurgeon's prognosis might doom Taylor to a life where she remembered only fragments of the love that had defined her. Ridge's children, too young to grasp the full scope of tragedy, hovered at the fringes of adult fear, watches in their eyes as Ridge tried to master his trembling composure to reassure them. From the gilded halls of Forrester Creations to the shadowed alcoves of the hospital corridor, Every heart in Los Angeles beat in sync with Taylor's fragile form under the oxygen mask. Social media erupted with well wishes and prayers, turning the accident into a cause célèbre that transcended soap opera fandom, drawing even the most casual viewer into the collective vigil for a woman who had long stood as a paragon of compassion and resilience. Yet none felt the agony more acutely than Ridge and Brooke, whose love for Taylor transcended rivalry and romance, binding them together in a shared crucible of guilt, grief, and hope. As dawn broke over the Tuscan hills, Ridge's shoulders sagged with exhaustion, but his eyes blazed with a resolve forged in tragedy. He vowed to fight for Taylor's life with every breath he could muster, promising the neurosurgeons that her survival would not be in vain. Brooke, sobbing in her Bel Air living room, resolved to stand by Taylor's family as an ally rather than a rival, determined to help shoulder the burden of redemption she now bore. In that interstice between life and death, love and loss, the characters of the bold and the beautiful found themselves confronted by an unanswerable question. Can a heart break and still pursue happiness? Or does the cost of another's pain forever bar the path to redemption? With Taylor's condition hanging in the balance and Ridge's heart split between hope and regret, the fallout from the accident promises to redefine every alliance and every vow ever made in the world of Forrester and Logan. Brooke's quest for self-forgiveness will parallel Ridge's fight to keep Taylor alive, and only when Taylor awakens, if she awakens, will the true measure of their loves and their loyalties be revealed. Until then, the rain-soaked roads of Florence, the sterile halls of the ICU, and the gilded offices of Forrester Creations stand as mute witnesses to a tragedy that may yet become the defining moment of their intertwined destinies. In a story built on second chances and relentless passion, Taylor Hayes' accident forces every character to ask, what will they risk to save a life, and what will they sacrifice in the name of love? Only the unfolding days of August will tell, and when the verdict comes, it will echo through every heart that still dares to hope in the bold and the beautiful.